Danse and hello everyone. I am very pleased to accept the Ontario Historical Society's Huguenot Society of Canada Award for 2020. My undergraduate degree is in history, so as a trained historian, this recognition means a lot to me. It took 6 years to research and write my book, Legacy, Trauma, Story, and Indigenous Healing. So I extend my thanks to the Honors and Awards Committee for recognizing the Indigenous theoretical frameworks that I use to examine the stories we tell in Canada today, as both Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. Reclaiming Indigenous ways of knowing in a settler colonial society takes a strength of purpose that I'm sure the Huguenots would appreciate. As an educator, I know that history must be taught through the lens of cause and consequence. By failing to see current challenges within Indigenous communities as a consequence of colonization, Canada continues to misunderstand the cause of the public health crises these challenges create. The historic events of colonization are not over, and we see that today in a colonial economy that marginalizes Indigenous people, colonial governance systems that criminalize us for asserting control over unceded territories, a policing and carceral system that punishes us for experiencing the everyday impacts of intergenerational trauma, and the lateral violence and family dysfunction that characterize those intergenerational impacts. The fact that Indigenous people are still here, after all we have experienced and continue to experience, speaks to our resilience and to the strength of our ancestors and descendants who guide us. Trauma theory tells us that anyone who witnesses a traumatic incident can suffer post-traumatic effects. So what has happened in Canada under settler colonialism affects non-Indigenous people too. We all have to heal from the trauma that has resulted and that continues to result from the imposition of settler colonial systems and the destruction and marginalization of Indigenous ways of knowing. I wrote this book because I want us all to have a different future. When the Wabanaki Confederacy on the East Coast and the Haudenosaunee Confederacy of the Great Lakes signed the first peace and friendship treaties with settler governments, they agreed to peaceably share the land and the gifts that she provides. We agreed to travel the same river in our own canoes, but not to interfere in each other's nationhood. Today, we know that those treaties have not been honored. I can only wonder what this country would look like, how wealthy we would be in our relationships, if the first settlers had seen Indigenous people as allies beyond short military campaigns, and if this country and its governments had chosen to see the wisdom of Indigenous ways of knowing and chosen to learn from those ways instead of choosing short-term, unsustainable monetary gain. Every day, I imagine a Canada where we co-create our futures. I wrote this book to help us imagine what that future could look like. Right now, I'm working on a novel set in northern Alberta, as well as 2 children's books, one for early readers and one for the middle grades. I have also begun work on a version of Legacy for young readers and literacy learners with co-author Brianna Oversby, who is a Métis educator. It's all part of my plan for changing the world and changing the stories we tell about ourselves and our society. If you'd like to connect, you can find me on Facebook at Suzanne Methot Author, on LinkedIn, and via my website, suzannemethot.ca. And if you want more information on trauma and healing-informed approaches, please check out my other website at traumastoryhealing.ca. Thank you again for the 2020 Huguenot Society of Canada Award. Stay well and see you soon. Hi.